The translator device blinked red again. Rachel Dunn tapped it twice, hoping the malfunction was temporary. It was not. For the third time in an hour, the Galactic Council's translation system had cut off mid-sentence while she spoke. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 40 different species watched with barely hidden amusement. Perhaps the human needs simpler words, someone muttered from the upper tiers. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Rachel took a slow breath. She had been doing this for 2 years. 2 years of sitting in this cold chamber while aliens who had never set foot on Earth decided what humanity could and could not do. 2 years of patience that was running dangerously thin. As I was saying, she continued without the translator, knowing at least half the council understood English perfectly well. Humanity requests the same basic rights granted to every other member species. Independent military forces, sovereign control over our colony worlds, the freedom to manage our own population. Speaker Vorn leaned forward from his elevated position. His blue-gray scales caught the purple ambient light as he spread his three-fingered hands in what might have been a gesture of sympathy. It was not. Ambassador Dunn, you must understand our position. Your species is young, impulsive. You wage wars among yourselves over the smallest disagreements. We cannot in good conscience allow such volatility to spread unchecked through civilized space. We ended our last major war over a century ago, Rachel said quietly. A century. Vorn's tone dripped with condescension. Some species here have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Your century is merely a breath, a pause between conflicts, surely. More laughter. Rachel noticed the Corthan delegate actually slapping his knee in mirth. The Council's terms are generous, Vorn continued. We will accept Earth and its colonies into our fold. We will share our technology and knowledge. All we ask in return is that you accept proper guidance, oversight committees on each human world, reasonable restrictions on your military capabilities, a sensible cap on your reproduction rates. These are small prices for the benefits of galactic citizenship. Rachel looked down at her datapad. The terms had arrived that morning. She had read them 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood. She had not. The Council wanted humanity to surrender everything that made them free. Every human world would host alien observers with veto power over local governments. Earth's fleet would be reduced to 10% of its current size. All weapons research would require Council approval. Humans could have no more than 2 children per family without special permission. Entire colony systems would be transferred to Council control and redistributed to other species who supposedly needed them more. And in exchange, humanity would receive a junior seat at this table, the right to speak but rarely be heard, the privilege of watching other species make decisions about human lives. I need to confer with my government, Rachel said. Of course, Vorn waved dismissively. Though I must remind you, this offer will not remain open indefinitely. We have been patient with your deliberations, but patience, even ours, has limits. Rachel stood and gathered her things. The 4 other humans in her delegation rose with her. As they walked toward the exit, she heard the Cortani representative speaking loudly enough for her to hear. Perhaps we should simply claim their worlds and be done with it. They clearly lack the maturity to govern themselves. Now, Vorn replied with false gentleness. We are not conquerors, we are civilizers. There is a difference. Rachel's jaw tightened, but she kept walking. Behind her, the Council had already moved on to other business, dismissing humanity as if they were children who had been sent from the room. Back in the human quarters of Convergence Point Station, Rachel's delegation gathered around a conference table. No one spoke for a long moment. They are not going to negotiate in good faith, said David Park, her senior advisor. These terms are designed to be rejected or accepted by a species desperate enough to surrender everything, added Maria Santos, the military liaison. Rachel activated the secure comm link to Earth. The encryption took a moment to establish. When the line opened, 5 faces appeared on the screen. The members of Earth's Unified Council looked tired. They had been waiting for this call. "Ambassador Dunn," said Secretary General Adams, "your report." Rachel laid out the terms in clinical detail. As she spoke, she watched the faces on the screen shift from hope to disbelief to anger. "They want us to disarm," Adams said slowly. "Surrender our colonies, accept foreign control of our governments, and limit how many children our people can have." "Yes, sir." "And if we refuse?" They have not explicitly threatened military action, but the implication is clear. Accept these terms or face isolation at best, invasion at worst. Silence filled both rooms. Rachel waited. She had done her job. The decision now rested with people elected to make exactly these kinds of choices. "Ambassador Dunn," Adams said finally, "please inform the Galactic Council that humanity declines their generous offer. We will not be joining at this time." "Sir, they may view that as an act of hostility." "Let them view it however they wish. Humanity did not crawl out of caves and cross the stars just to bow before a new set of masters. If the price of their friendship is our freedom, then we will do without their friendship." Rachel felt something loosen in her chest. She had not realized how much she needed to hear those words. "Understood, sir. I will deliver the message tomorrow." "No," Adams said. "Deliver it now, tonight, and then bring our people home, all of them, every human citizen in council space. We are done begging for scraps from their table." Rachel ended the call and looked at her delegation. They were smiling. For the first time in 2 years, they were actually smiling. "Shall we?" she asked. They returned to the council chamber where a session was still in progress. Some minor trade dispute between species whose names Rachel had never bothered to learn. Speaker Vorn looked annoyed at the interruption when she requested the floor. "Ambassador Dunn, we are in the middle of important business." "This will only take a moment," Rachel said. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber without need for translation. "On behalf of the United Nations of Earth and all human colonies, I am here to formally withdraw our petition for Council membership. Humanity thanks the Council for their time and consideration. We will be departing Convergence Point within the week. I wish you all well." She turned and walked out. This time her delegation followed with heads high. Behind them the council chamber fell silent. Then someone laughed. "They will be back," Vorn said with certainty. "Where else can they go?" In the gallery, a few representatives from smaller species exchanged glances but said nothing. They remembered their own histories. They remembered what happened when you cornered desperate people who had nothing left to lose. Krell's 4 arms moved frantically across the inventory display, checking the numbers again. Still wrong, still impossible, but the data did not lie. 0 incoming shipments from human suppliers. 0 departures scheduled to human stations. 0 responses to his increasingly desperate messages. The Torvin merchant slumped against the counter of his trading post on Station Meridian. Around him, the marketplace that had once buzzed with activity now echoed with emptiness. 3 months ago, this place had been packed shoulder to shoulder with buyers and sellers from 100 worlds. Now, half the stalls stood vacant. "Still no word?" asked Petrie, a Scallan vendor who sold the booth next to his. Krell shook his massive head. "Nothing. The humans are just gone." "Maybe they are angry about the council vote. Angry enough to abandon profitable trade routes, to leave behind contracts worth billions." Krell gestured at his inventory. "I have warehouses full of goods waiting for human merchants who are never coming. Medical supplies that only humans knew how to produce efficiently. Entertainment modules that everyone wants but only humans created. All of it just sitting there, losing value every day." Petrie's antennae drooped. "The Fenari restaurant 3 levels down closed yesterday. They specialized in human fusion cuisine. The owner said without human spice suppliers, She cannot maintain quality. Krell had noticed. He had also noticed the technology repair shop that closed because human diagnostic tools were no longer available, and the medical clinic that shut down 2 of its 5 wings due to medicine shortages, and the entertainment complex that lost half its visitors when human content disappeared from the streaming networks. Station Meridian was dying slowly, one empty storefront at a time. Perhaps it is temporary, Petrie suggested without conviction, a negotiating tactic. For 3 months, Krell pulled up a star map on his display. Red indicators marked every location where human presence had vanished. It was not just Meridian, it was everywhere. They have pulled out of every council-affiliated station, every trade hub, every mixed colony, completely. A priority message flashed on his screen. Krell's main supplier on the Torvan homeworld, asking when the next shipment of human medical synthesizers would arrive. The machines that could produce 50 different vaccines from a single sample. The machines that had cut infant mortality on his world by 60% in just 5 years. Krell did not know how to tell them there would be no more shipments. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in thousands of locations. The Cortani government convened emergency sessions as hospitals reported critical shortages. Human biochemists had solved protein synthesis problems that Cortani researchers had struggled with for decades. Now those solutions were gone, along with the humans who understood them. On agricultural worlds, farmers stared at fields of withering crops. Human farming techniques had increased yields by 40%, but the humans had left no instruction manuals, no guides, no databases. They had simply taken their knowledge and departed. The entertainment industry faced collapse. Humans produced 70% of the galaxy's music, films, games, and interactive experiences. Other species consumed it eagerly. Now streaming services offered the same old content on endless repeat while subscribers canceled in frustration. In the Council Intelligence Division, analyst Riva compiled reports that her superiors continued to ignore. She had been tracking the human withdrawal for weeks, documenting every disappeared ship, every recalled citizen, every severed contract. They are not just leaving, she told her department head. They are erasing themselves from Council space entirely. Humans are emotional, her supervisor replied dismissively. They will calm down and return to the negotiating table. Sir, I have identified a pattern. They are not acting emotionally. This is coordinated, planned. Every human merchant received recall orders on the same day. Every human research team departed within a 48-hour window. Every human citizen in Council space is being systematically withdrawn. Your point? My point is that this level of organization suggests preparation. They have been planning for this possibility for some time, perhaps years. Her supervisor waved a hand. Speculation. File your report and move on to more pressing matters. Riva filed the report. She also filed a second report, marked urgent, describing what she had found when she analyzed human comm traffic in the months before the withdrawal. Encrypted messages between Earth and every human colony. Massive data transfers. Shipping manifests for construction materials being redirected to human-controlled space. The humans had been preparing to leave for at least 2 years, maybe longer. That report also went ignored. On Convergence Point, Speaker Vorn reviewed economic projections with growing unease. The numbers were bad and getting worse. Tax revenue from human trade had accounted for 12% of the Council's operating budget. Technology licensing fees from human innovations added another 8%. Human merchants paid docking fees at nearly every major station in Council space. All of that income had stopped. Surely this cannot continue, he said to his advisors. They are hurting themselves as much as us. His economic advisor pulled up a detailed analysis. Actually, sir, Preliminary reports suggest otherwise. Human trade with Council space represented only 32% of their total economic activity. The majority of human commerce occurs between human colonies and independent systems. Independent systems. Worlds not affiliated with the Council. There are thousands of them. Humans have been establishing trade relationships with these systems for decades. They have alternative markets. Vorn felt the first stirring of genuine concern. And our member species, how dependent are they on human trade? The advisor hesitated. For some, very dependent. The Cortani economy, for example, has contracted by 9% in just 3 months. Agricultural worlds are reporting potential famine conditions if they cannot source human farming technology. 14 different species have filed formal complaints about medicine shortages. This is unacceptable. Send a delegation to Earth. We will remind them of their obligations. Sir, they have no obligations. They withdrew their membership petition. Legally, they owe us nothing. Vorn's scales rippled with irritation. Then we will send a delegation to remind them of the benefits of cooperation and the costs of isolation. The delegation departed a week later. 5 ships carrying diplomats from 5 different council species, all chosen for their experience in handling difficult negotiations. They arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system confident in their mission. They were met by a wall of weapons platforms that had not existed 3 months earlier. Unknown vessels, this is Earth Defense Control, a human voice said calmly. You are entering restricted space. State your purpose or turn back immediately. The delegation leader tried to explain their diplomatic mission. The human voice cut him off. Diplomatic relations were severed when humanity withdrew from council negotiations. You are not recognized as having diplomatic status in human space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. This is outrageous. We demand to speak with Earth's government. 20 seconds. The delegation turned back. They had no choice. The weapons tracking them made it clear the humans were not bluffing. When they returned to Convergence Point, Speaker Vorn listened to their report with growing anger that masked growing fear. They dared to threaten council ships. Sir, they did not threaten. They simply stated facts. Their defenses are extensive, far more extensive than our intelligence suggested was possible. Vorn pulled up the latest reports from council scouts who had observed human space from a distance. What he saw made his blood run cold. Shipyards, dozens of them. Construction on a scale that should have taken decades. All built in secret while humanity smiled and nodded through council negotiations. They had never intended to accept the council's terms. They had been buying time, preparing, building. And now they were ready to stand alone. The hospital director stared at the empty storage unit where the medicine should have been. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked the inventory system again. Still the same result. 3 days of serum remaining. After that, nothing. How many patients are currently on the treatment? She asked her assistant. 2,418 on the Cortani homeworld alone. Another 6,000 across our colony systems. The disease had no name in the Cortani language because it had been eradicated before they developed written records. Then it had returned 5 years ago, mutating from something their ancient ancestors had conquered. Cortani medical science had thrown everything at it and failed. The disease attacked their nervous systems in ways they could not predict or counter. Then the humans had arrived with their strange approach to medicine. They did not try to cure the disease. Instead, they taught the Cortani immune system how to fight it. A simple injection that retrained the body's own defenses. It worked in 98% of cases. The Cortani had called it a miracle. The humans had called it a basic vaccine and seemed surprised by the gratitude. Now the miracle was running out. Can we synthesize more? The director asked, knowing the answer. We have tried. The process requires 17 different compounds in exact proportions. We have identified 12 of them. The other 5 remain unknown. Human biochemists would not share the complete formula, citing proprietary research. The director wanted to scream, proprietary research, trade secrets, as if such things mattered more than lives, but she knew that was unfair. The humans had sold the medicine cheaply, far below its value. They had trained Cortani doctors in its administration. They had asked for nothing unreasonable in return. Until the Cortani delegate had mocked them in the council chambers and voted to restrict their freedoms. "Send a message to Earth," the director said quietly. "Explain the situation, appeal to their compassion." The message was sent. It joined thousands of similar messages from across the galaxy. All went unanswered. 3 sectors away, a Fenari agricultural supervisor stood at the edge of a massive field and tried not to cry. The grain was dying. Row after row of withered stalks that should have been waist-high by now barely reached her knees. "Did we follow the procedures exactly?" she asked her team. "Yes, supervisor. Every step that we observed the human advisors perform, but the yield is less than half of what we achieved when they were here." The Fenari had always been adequate farmers. They fed their people with enough left over for modest exports. Then human agricultural specialists had arrived offering to share techniques. Crop rotation patterns that seemed random but somehow enriched the soil. Pest management that used natural predators instead of chemicals. Irrigation timing based on plant biology rather than fixed schedules. The Fenari yields had doubled in 3 years. Their economy had boomed. They had gone from adequate to prosperous. Then the humans had left, taking their knowledge with them. The Fenari had tried to replicate what they had seen, but there were too many variables they did not understand. Why plant this crop after that one? Why release these insects at this specific time? The humans had explained, but the explanations involved concepts the Fenari struggled to grasp. "We could ask them to return," suggested one of the junior farmers. "The council has issued a directive. No member species may engage in direct trade or communication with humanity without authorization. They say it is to present a unified front. So we starve with dignity." The supervisor had no answer to that. In the entertainment districts of a dozen worlds, establishments closed their doors. The Scallon, who owned a popular venue on Station Triumph, sat in the empty hall and listened to silence. 3 months ago, this place had been packed every night. People came to experience human music, human stories, human games. Humans had a gift for narrative that other species struggled to match. They created characters that felt real, stories that made you forget you were watching fiction. Their music carried emotions that transcended language barriers. Their games balanced challenge and reward in ways that kept you engaged for hours. Now the content libraries were picked clean. Every human creation had been consumed and reconsumed until audiences knew every plot twist, every melody, every game strategy. Nothing new was coming. The Scallon had tried to fill the gap with content from other species. It was not the same. The audiences could feel the difference. They stopped coming. "Perhaps humans were not as special as we thought," he told himself. "Perhaps we simply convinced ourselves they were." But he knew that was a lie. The empty hall proved it. In the council chambers, an emergency session convened to address the growing crisis. Representatives from 37 species presented reports on economic damage, supply shortages, and social unrest. Speaker Vorn listened to each presentation with increasing dread. The Cortani reported medicine shortages affecting millions. Agricultural worlds predicted famine within 6 months. Technology sectors faced collapse without human innovation. The entertainment industry was hemorrhaging jobs. Trade stations operated at partial capacity. Tax revenues were down across the board. "This cannot be allowed to continue," declared the Corthan delegate. "We must take action." What action do you propose? Vorn asked tiredly. Economic sanctions, a blockade of human space, forced them to negotiate. Analyst Riva stood from her seat in the lower tiers. She had been granted speaking privileges after her reports had finally been read by people with actual authority. Sanctions would be ineffective, she said clearly. Human trade with Council space represented only a third of their economy. They can sustain themselves indefinitely. A blockade would require military forces we cannot spare and would likely trigger conflict we cannot win. Cannot win, the Corthan delegate's voice rose in outrage. They are one species, we are hundreds. One species with military capabilities that exceed our intelligence estimates by a factor of 4. One species that has spent decades establishing relationships with independent systems while we ignored them. One species that, I must remind this council, we deliberately insulted and dismissed. Silence fell across the chamber. Are you suggesting we capitulate? Vorn asked. I am suggesting we recognize reality. Humanity does not need us. We need them. The longer we maintain this position, the worse our situation becomes while theirs remains stable. They will come back, the Cortani delegate insisted. They are too emotional to sustain isolation. They have been isolated for 3 months and show no signs of distress. Meanwhile, we are experiencing measurable economic decline, supply chain collapse, and social instability. Who is actually suffering from this separation? The question hung in the air. No one wanted to answer it. Finally, Vorn spoke. Very well, prepare a delegation. We will extend an invitation to resume negotiations. Offer them better terms. Sir, Riva said carefully, I recommend we do more than offer better terms. I recommend we offer them equal partnership. Equal, they are a single species. A single species that produces a third of the galaxy's medical advances, half its agricultural innovation, and 70% of its cultural content. A single species that every other species depends on in ways we did not fully appreciate until they were gone. Continued arrogance will only deepen this crisis. Vorn wanted to argue. His pride demanded it. But the numbers in the reports before him told a story his pride could not change. Humanity had called the Council's bluff, and the Council had nothing. The delegation arrived at Earth's borders with more humility than their predecessors. 6 ships instead of 5, smaller vessels, fewer weapons. They broadcast their intentions on all frequencies long before entering the defense perimeter. This is Council Delegation 7 to Earth Defense Control. We request permission to approach for diplomatic discussions. We come in peace and respect. The response came quickly this time. Council Delegation 7, you are cleared to approach Luna Station. Follow the transmitted flight path exactly. Any deviation will be considered hostile. They followed the path. As they moved through the solar system, the delegation members stared at their sensor displays with growing unease. Those are new, the Torvan pilot muttered, indicating a cluster of weapons platforms orbiting Mars. Everything is new, replied the delegation leader, a Scalan diplomat named Horvath. Intelligence estimated Earth had maybe 300 major defense installations. I am reading over 2,000. How is that possible? We were here just 8 months ago. Clearly, we were not looking closely enough. The shipyards came into view as they approached Luna, massive construction facilities that churned out vessels at an impossible rate. Horvath counted 27 ships under construction in just 1 yard. His sensors detected 6 more yards scattered through the asteroid belt. Request permission to scan those facilities, his military observer asked. Denied, Horvath said immediately. We are here to talk, not spy. They docked at Luna Station and were escorted through corridors that gleamed with recent construction. The station had been here during the negotiations, but it had been smaller, much smaller. Entire sections appeared to be new additions. Ambassador Rachel Dunn met them in a conference room with windows overlooking Earth. She looked different than Horvath remembered, more confident, more at ease, like someone who had put down a heavy burden. "Speaker Horvath," she said, gesturing to seats around a circular table. "Please make yourselves comfortable. Can we offer refreshments?" "Thank you, no. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us." "Of course, though I confess curiosity about what has changed since our last conversation." Horvath cleared his throat. "The Council recognizes that our previous terms may have been overly restrictive. We are prepared to discuss more equitable arrangements." "Equitable?" Rachel said the word carefully, as if tasting it. "Could you be more specific?" "We would be willing to reduce oversight requirements significantly, allow you to maintain a larger military force, negotiate on the population controls." Negotiate, not eliminate. The Council has legitimate concerns about unchecked expansion. Rachel leaned back in her chair. "Let me tell you what humanity has been doing for the past 8 months. We have been building, not weapons primarily, though we have built those too. Mostly we have been building partnerships." She activated a display showing a star map. Hundreds of systems lit up in blue. "These are independent systems that have established formal trade agreements with humanity. We offer them fair prices for resources and goods. We share medical technology freely. We provide entertainment and cultural exchange. We ask for nothing except mutual respect and honest dealing." Horvath stared at the map. "That is nearly a quarter of the galaxy's independent systems. 28%, actually, and growing. Turns out most species appreciate being treated as equals rather than inferiors. The Council does not treat member species as inferiors." Rachel smiled without warmth. "Your previous delegation demanded we surrender our sovereignty, disarm our defenses, accept foreign control of our governments, and limit how many children we could have. What would you call that?" Horvath had no answer. "We also have mutual defense pacts with 47 systems," Rachel continued. "If any of them are attacked, we respond, not because we seek conflict, but because we believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "You are building an empire." "We are building a network of friends. There is a difference. None of these systems answer to Earth. They govern themselves as they see fit. We do not demand tribute or obedience. We simply offer what the Council would not: partnership between equals." The military observer leaned forward. "Your defenses have expanded significantly. That suggests military ambitions." "That suggests we learned an important lesson. The galaxy is not as civilized as the Council pretends. There are threats out here: pirates, raiders, expansionist empires who prey on the weak. The Council ignores most of these problems because they affect primarily independent systems. We do not have that luxury. Our friends need protection. The Council has peacekeeping forces, which respond to threats against Council members. Everyone else is on their own. We are simply filling a gap you refuse to address." Horvath tried a different approach. "Many species are suffering from your withdrawal: medical shortages, agricultural failures, economic disruption." "Yes, we are aware. People are dying. People die every day in systems the Council ignores. We sent medicine and aid to those systems for free. We trained their doctors. We taught their farmers. The Council took our contributions and gave nothing in return except contempt. So this is revenge." Rachel's expression hardened. "This is consequence. You wanted us to surrender everything that makes us free. We refused. You expected us to come crawling back, desperate and willing to accept any terms. We did not. Now you are discovering that you needed us more than we needed you. We are prepared to offer significant concessions." "I appreciate that, truly. But humanity is no longer interested in joining the Council as a member species." Horvath felt his hopes crumble. "Then why agree to meet with us?" Because we are interested in establishing diplomatic relations as independent partners, trade agreements between equals, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchanges, all the benefits of cooperation without the surrender of sovereignty. The Council will never agree to treat a single species as equal to the entire organization. Then the Council will continue to struggle, because those are our terms. We will not join you. We will work with you if you treat us with respect, but we will never bow to you. Horvath looked at his fellow delegates. They all wore the same expression of shock. This was not how the meeting was supposed to go. They had come here expecting desperate humans ready to negotiate from weakness. Instead, they faced humans negotiating from strength. "I will present your position to the Council," Horvath said slowly, "though I suspect they will not react well. That is their choice to make. But Speaker Horvath, you should know something. While you have been struggling with economic disruption, we have been building infrastructure. While your member species have been fighting over scraps, we have been creating abundance. While the Council has been arguing about how to punish us, we have been making genuine friends across the galaxy." She stood, indicating the meeting was over. "We did not want this conflict. We wanted partnership. You rejected that, so we built our own partnerships, better ones, more honest ones. If the Council wants to benefit from what we have created, you are welcome to join us, but only as equals. Those are the only terms humanity will accept." The delegation departed Luna Station in silence. As they traveled back through the solar system, past the weapons platforms and shipyards and defense grids, they knew their mission had failed. Humanity was not coming back to the negotiating table as supplicants. They were moving forward as a power in their own right, and the galaxy was moving with them. Myra had made her decision 3 days ago. Now she stood before the Fenari High Council, waiting to see if her people would support her gamble or execute her for treason. "You propose we leave the Galactic Council," the eldest counselor said slowly. "An organization we have been part of for 4 centuries, to join with humans we barely know." "Not join with them," Myra corrected. "Partner with them, the difference matters." "Explain." Myra activated the display showing harvest projections. "Without human agricultural assistance, we face famine within 5 months. Our reserves are depleted. Traditional farming methods cannot support our current population. We have 3 choices. Beg the Galactic Council for aid they may or may not provide. Watch our people starve, or ask the humans for help. The Council has forbidden direct contact with humanity." "The Council is not facing starvation. We are." Another counselor spoke up. "What makes you think the humans will help us? We voted in favor of restricting them. Our delegate laughed at their withdrawal." "I sent a message to Earth 3 weeks ago," Myra said quietly. "I explained our situation honestly. I offered nothing except our gratitude and future friendship. They responded within 2 days." She pulled up the human reply. The counselors read in silence. "They offer agricultural specialists, seed stocks, and farming equipment," the eldest counselor summarized, "in exchange for mutual defense cooperation and trade agreements. These terms are remarkably generous." "Too generous," another counselor said suspiciously. "What is their real agenda?" "I asked them that directly. Their ambassador said, and I quote, 'We help because we can, and because leaving people to starve when we have the means to prevent it is morally unacceptable. We ask for partnership in return because we believe civilizations grow stronger together.' Pretty words, words are cheap. Which is why I requested evidence of their sincerity. They sent this." The display changed to show sensor logs of human aid shipments to independent systems, medical supplies to plague-stricken worlds, engineering teams rebuilding infrastructure destroyed by pirate raids, food shipments to colonies suffering crop failures, all provided without demanding political concessions or tribute. "They are building loyalty," the suspicious counselor observed. They are building trust, Myra countered. And there is a difference. These systems are not vassals. They remain independent. They simply choose to trade with humans because humans treat them fairly. The eldest counselor studied the data carefully. The Galactic Council will view our departure as betrayal. The Galactic Council views us as vassals, not partners. They dictated terms to us for centuries. We accepted because we had no alternative. Now we do. One untested alternative. The humans could fail. Their economy could collapse. Their defenses could prove inadequate. Their economy is growing while the Council shrinks. Their defenses repelled Council scouts with ease, and their technology advances continue to outpace anything the Council produces. I believe the humans are the future. The Council is the past clinging to relevance. Silence fell across the chamber. Finally, the eldest counselor spoke. We will vote, but Myra, understand what you are asking. If we do this, there is no going back. The Council will punish us, trade sanctions at minimum, military intervention at worst. The humans have offered protection under their mutual defense network. If the Council attacks, they respond. You trust them that much. I trust desperation that much. We need help, the Council will not provide it. The humans will. That is not faith, that is pragmatism. The vote passed narrowly. Within a week, Fenari officially withdrew from the Galactic Council and signed a partnership agreement with humanity. Human agricultural specialists arrived within 3 days. They brought seeds, equipment, and most importantly, knowledge. The Fenari learned. The humans taught patiently, explaining not just what to do but why. They left detailed guides in simple language. They trained local experts who could teach others. Within 2 months, Fenari harvests stabilized. Within 6, they exceeded pre-crisis levels. The Fenari were not alone. The Torvan followed next, driven by medical necessity. Then the Scallan, seeking economic recovery. Then species whose names most council members did not even know because they had always been too small to matter in council politics. Each species that left reported the same experience. Humans offered fair terms. They shared knowledge freely. They asked for partnership, not submission. They protected their allies without demanding political control. The exodus accelerated. On Convergence Point, Speaker Vorn watched his empire crumble in real time. The display showed current council membership in red. Systems that had departed glowed blue. The blue was spreading. How many this week? He asked. 7 species have formally withdrawn. 12 more have filed intent to depart. 23 are openly negotiating with human representatives. This is unacceptable. His advisor said nothing. What could he say? The truth was that it was entirely acceptable. The departing species were following their own interests. They were making rational choices based on clear evidence. The Council offered stability and tradition. Humanity offered growth and respect. More and more systems were choosing growth. We must demonstrate strength, Vorn declared. Military exercises along human borders. Show them we are not weak. Sir, our military capabilities are stretched thin. Half our peacekeeping forces are deployed trying to maintain order in systems considering departure. We do not have resources for intimidation displays. Then we sanction the systems that have left, embargo their trade. With respect, sir, they do not need our trade anymore. The human network is self-sufficient. Sanctions would hurt us more than them. Vorn slammed his hand on the desk. Then what do you suggest? That we simply accept the dissolution of everything we have built? I suggest we consider why species are leaving, and whether the fault lies with them or with us. The advisor pulled up comparative data. Council member satisfaction ratings over the past 50 years. They had been declining steadily. Complaints about unfair trade practices. Frustration with bureaucratic inefficiency. Resentment of the Council's hierarchical structure where older, more established species held disproportionate power. The humans did not steal our members, the advisor said carefully. We drove them away. The humans simply offered an alternative. An alternative built on false promises. Is it false if they deliver? The Fenari are not starving. The Torvin have medicine. The Scalan economy is recovering. The humans are keeping their promises. Can we say the same? Vorn had no response to that. In the human network, new partnerships formed daily. Trade routes shifted. Cultural exchanges flourished. Systems that had been isolated began connecting with each other through human coordination. The humans did not build an empire. They built something stranger and more powerful, a voluntary association of equals, bound together by mutual benefit and genuine respect. No species held authority over another. Decisions were made by consensus. Disputes were mediated by neutral parties that everyone trusted. And at the center of it all, humanity served not as rulers but as facilitators. They connected species that had never met. They mediated disagreements before they became conflicts. They shared innovations freely and encouraged others to do the same. It was messy, it was chaotic, it was inefficient by Council standards. It was also working better than anything the Council had created in 10,000 years. Analyst Riva compiled her final report on the situation. She titled it simply, "How We Lost the Galaxy by Demanding Too Much and Offering Too Little." She doubted anyone would read it, but she filed it anyway, for the historians who would someday try to understand how the Galactic Council had fallen apart not through war or conquest, but through irrelevance. 2 years after humanity walked out of the council chambers, Rachel Dunn returned. But everything was different now. She arrived not as a supplicant but as the representative of a coalition that included 83 species. She did not request permission to speak. She had been formally invited. She did not sit in the lower tiers. A seat had been prepared for her at the central table, equal in height and prominence to Speaker Vorn's. The council chambers felt emptier than she remembered. Less than half the seats were occupied. Some species had left entirely. Others had withdrawn their primary representatives, sending only minor officials to maintain minimal presence. Vorn looked older, tired. His ornate robe seemed to hang loosely on his frame. "Ambassador Dunn," he said formally, "thank you for accepting our invitation." "Speaker Vorn, I appreciate the opportunity to address the Council. We have reviewed your proposed treaty extensively. The terms are quite different from our original discussions." "Yes, because we are different entities now than we were 2 years ago. You were a galactic authority. We were petitioners seeking admission. Neither of those descriptions remains accurate." Vorn gestured to the empty seats around them. "You have cost us dearly." "We cost you nothing. You cost yourselves by refusing to adapt. The species that left did not abandon you for us. They abandoned a system that did not serve their interests for one that did. They abandoned centuries of tradition and stability. They abandoned stagnation and hierarchy for growth and equality. Those are not the same thing." A Cortani delegate spoke up, anger clear in her voice. "Your actions directly led to suffering. Our people died while you withheld medicine." Rachel met her gaze steadily. "Your government demanded we surrender our sovereignty, disarm our defenses, and accept foreign control of our worlds. When we refused, you expected us to continue providing aid while being treated with contempt. That is not how partnerships work. So you let people die to make a point. We let people experience the consequences of their government's choices. Your leadership voted to restrict us. We withdrew. The suffering that followed was preventable. Your council could have treated us with respect from the beginning. They chose arrogance instead. And now you expect us to forget that. I expect nothing. I am here because you invited me to discuss a new treaty. If you prefer to litigate the past rather than build a future, I can return to my ship." Vorn raised a hand, quieting the Cortani delegate. "We invited you here in good faith. Please continue. Rachel activated a display showing the proposed treaty structure. The treaty establishes formal diplomatic relations between the Galactic Council and the Human Alliance Network, not as superior and inferior, but as peer organizations. We agree to mutual defense cooperation, free trade, technology sharing, and cultural exchange. You ask us to treat your alliance as equal to the Council. I ask you to treat us as what we are, a coalition of 83 species spanning a quarter of the galaxy, with growing economic power and military capability. Pretending otherwise serves no one. A Torvan counselor studied the numbers. Your economic projections show the Human Alliance Network surpassing Council GDP within 5 years. Conservative estimates suggest 3 years. We are growing faster than projected. How is that possible? Because we removed the barriers that slow growth. No restrictive trade regulations, no technology hoarding, no artificial limitations on expansion. Species in our network help each other because doing so benefits everyone. The rising tide lifts all ships. Riva, now promoted to senior analyst, spoke from her position as an official council observer. My research supports these claims. The Human Alliance operates at significantly higher efficiency than council systems, reduced bureaucracy, faster decision-making, more equitable resource distribution. It sounds too good to be true, the Cortani delegate said skeptically. It is not perfect, Rachel admitted. We have disputes, we have inefficiencies, but we resolve conflicts through mediation rather than letting them fester. We adapt our systems when they fail instead of defending them out of tradition. We focus on results rather than process. And what happens when your alliance fragments? Vorn asked. When species disagree and break away. Then they break away. We are not an empire. Any species can leave at any time with no penalty. Several have departed over disagreements. Most return eventually because they realize the alternative is worse. Those that do not, we wish them well and maintain friendly relations. That is chaos. That is freedom, and it works better than you want to admit. Silence fell across the chamber. Finally, a small voice spoke from the gallery, a representative from a minor species that had remained in the council. What about species like us? Too small to leave the council, but too insignificant to have real voice in it. What does your treaty offer us? Rachel turned to face the speaker. Membership in the Human Alliance is open to any species, including current council members. You can maintain council membership while also joining our network. We do not demand exclusivity. The council forbids dual membership. The council forbids many things that no longer serve any purpose except maintaining their own authority. That restriction is yours to negotiate with them, not ours to enforce. Vorn's expression darkened. You would undermine us from within. We would offer alternatives to species that want them. What you call undermining, I call competition. If the council provides better value than our network, species will stay. If we provide better value, they will join us. That is how free markets work. Politics is not a market. Everything is a market. Systems compete for citizens. Governments compete for legitimacy. Organizations compete for members. The council has enjoyed a monopoly for thousands of years. That monopoly is ending. You can either adapt or fade into irrelevance. The bluntness of her words shocked the chamber. No one spoke to the council this way, but Rachel was not intimidated. She represented 83 species and growing. She spoke from a position of strength the council could no longer match. Vorn studied her for a long moment. If we agree to this treaty, what guarantees do we have that you will not simply absorb all our remaining members and dismantle the council entirely? None, because we are not interested in destroying you. The galaxy is large enough for multiple organizations. Competition makes everyone better. If the council reforms, becomes more responsive to member needs, treats species with respect, then you will thrive alongside us. If you continue as you have been, you will decline. Either way, that is your choice to make. And if we refuse the treaty, then we continue as we are. Your remaining members will continue leaving. Your economy will continue contracting. Your influence will continue waning. In 10 years, the council will be a historical footnote. But that, too, is your choice. Vorn looked around the half-empty chamber, at the empty seats where proud species once sat, at the diminished attendance that spoke louder than any argument, at the reality that Rachel's words, harsh as they were, reflected truth he could no longer deny. "We will vote on the treaty," he said quietly. The vote took 3 days. In the end, it passed by a slim margin, not because the council members trusted humanity, but because they had no better options. Rachel signed the treaty on behalf of the Human Alliance. Vorn signed for the council. Neither smiled for the ceremonial photographs. Both knew this was not a happy occasion. It was an acknowledgement of changed circumstances. As Rachel prepared to leave Convergence Point, Riva approached her privately. "You were right," the analyst said, "about everything. The council's arrogance, our inefficiency, the coming changes. I tried to warn them." "I know. I read your reports. They were excellent." "They were ignored." "Until they could not be ignored anymore. Sometimes people need to feel pain before they accept truth." "Do you think the council will survive?" Rachel considered the question carefully. If they reform, yes. If they cling to old ways, no. But either way, the galaxy is better off, because now there is choice, competition, innovation. The council had good intentions, but they forgot that good intentions without good execution are worthless. And humanity. What happens when your alliance faces the same problems? When you become as rigid and traditional as we did? Rachel smiled. Then someone new will come along and offer a better alternative, and we will either adapt or decline. That is how it should be. Progress requires that nothing stays dominant forever, not even us. She extended her hand. Riva shook it. "Thank you for trying to help them see reason," Rachel said, "even when they would not listen. Thank you for proving that kindness and strength are not opposites. The galaxy needed that lesson." Rachel returned to her ship and departed Convergence Point. Behind her, the council began the long, painful process of reform. Some changes came quickly. Others took years. The council never regained its former prominence, but it found a new role as one organization among many, contributing its experience and stability to a more diverse galactic community. And at the center of that community, humanity continued doing what it did best, building bridges between species, solving problems through cooperation, growing stronger by lifting others up. They had walked away from the council's table because they refused to accept scraps. They had built their own table, big enough for everyone, with every seat equal. That made all the difference.